Hi, welcome. I'm so glad you came to this webinar, and I hope that you'll leave excited about the information that you found and having a starting place of finding out where you are in that process to start buying a home. So here, let me share my screen with you. Let's see. I think you already see I can't tell if you see my screen or not. Okay, share. You should see my screen now. All right, we're going to go over the 4 phases of knowing your starting point. 4 phases in Home Buying 101. It's just Home Buying 101. And it's simplified into 4 phases, okay? But first, let me tell you, who's behind CTH Realty? CTH stands for Consider This Home Realty. I'm the broker, owner of the company, and I've got Brittany as my right-hand gal. Brittany is the transaction coordinator and executive assistant. So together we work to help renters become owners, and then those owners end up becoming investors sometimes, which is pretty awesome. So let's move on and give you kind of an overview of what we're going to talk about today. Usually when people want to buy a home or look at buying a home, searching for a home is the first thing that they do. Finances are the first thing that typically need to be in order, but the search is the first thing and that is most interesting and kind of spurs that desire to find something. So we'll talk about the search, the financial puzzle pieces, the things that you need to be able to put everything, all your ducks in a row. And then the home on the hook. That's what I call once you get a home on contract. We've gone through a season where there's been some competition in getting a home on contract. So I want to be able to present to you the key factors to be able to get a home on contract and the process afterwards, the contract to close. And that will go over the underwriting and different milestones. Yeah. Okay, search strategy. Let's talk a little bit about that. I like to talk about sifting or picking. So rather than just randomly reaching into the MLS or all the search apps and picking a home to go look at, you're lengthening the time that it takes to find the right place. It's best done, from my experience, if you use a sifting process. That's more of a process of elimination. And that's with the help of an agent, of course, and an app where you can communicate between, send some out, send some home, eliminate some homes, put them in the trash can, heart some homes, favorite some homes, and be able to pick what to search from there. In your search, I like to present 4 things. What are some things that you must have, that you should have, that you could have, and that you won't have at this time? Some of the must-haves might be, say, that you have to live on a golf course. But I like to talk to people and find out, why is it they want to live on a golf course? Is it because they're avid golfers? Is it because they just want the wide open space? Is that they want a well-manicured neighborhood? What are the things that are important to me? I can tell you a quick story of a couple that I worked with who were very adamant about getting a home on a golf course. We were only looking at golf course homes. But what did they end up buying? They ended up buying a condo on the river. So in finding out, in knowing their source along the way, I noticed the husband kept mentioning about selling the boat, or where will we put the boat? Because they came from a large home on a river, but they were downsizing, and they decided that a condo was a good fit for them. So it's always good to consider the reasons behind why you want something. Other must-haves, you want to check and make sure that the neighborhood, if there's a homeowners association, make sure it's conducive to the things you want to do. One of the could have features is if you could have a pool with a home with a pool or not a pool, but you want to have one later. So if you're adamant about wanting a pool down the road, but you can't really afford it right now, but you want a property that has the space for it, then that may be something that's it's a should have or a must have for you. So those are just some tips into the home search process. Now we'll get to the nitty-gritty to do your pre-flight checklist things. The financial puzzle has many pieces, and everybody has different pieces to that puzzle. It's not a cookie cutter thing, but you want to look at your money sources, your work history and income, and your credit worthiness. When we look at the money sources, we want to talk about the people and the connections to the people. Where does that money come from? Do you have money that is in just your name, or your name and your husband's name? Is there money that's going to be gifted from another source, whether it's family or not family? And what that connection is matters, and where the money's sitting matters. So those are some things that can be discussed with you and your real estate agent if they're familiar with this part of the process, or connected with a lender who will dig into that deeper. The other pieces are income and your financial track record. So you need to you may have had a job for 2 years solid, and that's an awesome thing, but do you have enough finances to be able to purchase and make payments on a home that you're wanting to purchase? And do you have a track record of paying things on time? A lot of times when I do property management and pull credit, it shows on-time payments. So if there's someone that's got 5 years of credit history where they've had different credit cards, car loans, and there's no missed payments, others might have 30 days late, 60 days late, and those show up, and that plays into your credit worthiness and what type of a rate a lender is willing to be flexible on to be able to offer you. All that information, there's different paperwork that you can provide, and at the end of this webinar, I'm going to give you a list of a file system that you can make, and what documents you can collect to be able to have ready for a lender for their review in order to find out if you are ready to be pre-qualified or pre-approved for a loan. So when we talk about pre-approval, it's always a conditional approval. Even if they don't add the word conditional, it's a conditional approval until you get what's called a clear to close. So the first steps of being able to make an offer on a home is you need to have either proof of funds, and that's for someone that has cash to be able to buy a home with. And that needs to be a letter from the source, such as a bank. And then a pre-approval is a letter from a lender. So let's talk about those two things, cash and finance, for a minute. If there's cash in hand, it's usually sitting in a bank, sitting in an investment fund, or in an escrow account. Say you sold a home or sold a property, or and you've got that money sitting in the escrow account with either an attorney or a title company that's waiting ready to purchase another piece of property. That's cash. Cash tied up. I've seen where a sale has fallen through because someone had presented themselves as being a cash offer, but it was really cryptocurrency. So it wasn't true cash yet because it was still tied up as cryptocurrency and they could not get it out, even giving them several weeks extension. They were unaware of the fees that it cost, and ultimately they were not able to purchase the home that they were wanting to purchase, which in turn made my buyer or my seller have to wait for that buyer to sell their home to somebody else. Maybe a little confusing in how I explain that, but it can be a glitch. And then you've got, when you're financing a home, you have a percentage that you have to put down as a down payment. If it's a VA loan, there's 0 down for qualified veterans. So that's a wonderful opportunity if you're purchasing a home and you've served in the military in a capacity, even if you've served as in the National Guard. So let's move on. Money sources. People and the connections matter. Pieces. Wait, we already did that one. There we go. So we'll talk about your work history. It needs to be, the lenders want to see longevity. They want to see commitment that you've got a money source that's going to be sticking around for the next few years, not that you're job hopping. A 2-year minimum is really what they look at. And if you don't make a lot of money, they'll look at a second job too. But if that second job is only part-time or has not been for 2 years, they're going to ask for it to be 3 years or longer. So the amount that you make in your job is of importance as well. Credit habits. We discussed looking at credit report. On-time payments are very important, but know your credit score. Find out what your credit score is. You can pull from the 3 credit bureaus. You can pull your credit and find out your score free 1 time a year. But then there's also different apps like Credit Karma and stuff that you can find out an approximation of what your score is. And there's 3 different companies that do it. And if you've got 2 different scores, the lender will use the lower of the 2 scores, in my experience. Want to pay your bills on time. Keep credit available. What that means is if you've got a credit card, you don't want to max it out. You want to have more than 50% of that available credit available. Yes, you can raise your credit limit and help those numbers out, and that can help your credit score sometimes too. But you want to be careful when you're messing with your credit. You don't want to pay off things too early. If you're getting ready to buy a home, sometimes it's better to have a little bit on that credit card rather than having a 0 balance, and to show that you still have, that you're using that credit. And you want, if your credit is not very good right now, then just build from now, from today. Pay those bills on time. Make arrangements if there's something that you need to clear up. Take the time to write a letter and clear things up and make those phone calls and be on hold. Use some grit to be able to get past some of those glitches in credit. If you have a foreclosure, a bankruptcy, some unpaid collections, that's not going to stop you from buying a house. It can stop you, but it doesn't always have to stop you. So press on and find out, talk to a lender and find out what your situation is and see where you stand. Don't just assume you can't do it if you have some issues. All right, sealing the deal. This is talking about when we're ready to make an offer. Once you have your pre-approval letter from a lender, they've already looked at your income, checked your loan to value or the property that you want to purchase, that looked at your a debt to income ratio. There's a front end ratio and a back end ratio, but the basics that you need to know is that they look at what's the money that you have coming in, what are your monthly obligations, And will those two be able to give you what dollar amount you can afford for to purchase a home? My side note, my recommendation, if you are approved for a home for, let's say, $450,000, my suggestion is don't buy a home for $450,000. Buy a home for $375,000. Buy for less than what you can be approved for if you can have those needs met. That leaves you room if you still want to buy a boat later or a tractor or something that it doesn't use up all of your credit and make it so that you're struggling. So that a bank may see you can afford something, but you know best what you can afford and what other extra things that you like to do, vacations or traveling or different experiences that cost money. So keep in mind to not make the budget too tight for them. All right, strong offer's got 5 negotiating points, and I'll go over those 5 things quickly for you, but I also have a flyer I can provide that has those on them. So the price you can negotiate on. There are like 12 pages. There's a bunch of pages in a real estate contract and a lot to read and a lot to know. But ultimately, when you're making that offer, there's 5 negotiating points to discuss. It's the price, the terms. That means whether you're going to finance it and what type of financing and how long it's going to take you to make your application. And then we talk about the dates. The dates, the contract, when will the closing date be? How long for an inspection period? How long before you're going to apply for a loan? And how long you want the sellers to consider your offer? Do you want them to get back to you the same night within 24 hours? You want to give them the weekend to think about it? Those are all negotiating points that can work to your favor and get you the deal. And then there's contingency of inclusions and exclusions. Okay, that's there. And let's get to the end of this so that I can. All right, and so thank you a ton for attending. Thanks for attending. It's been a pleasure to go over this information with you. And if you have any questions, I am more than happy to have a phone chat with you and go over some things and clarify anything that you need clarification on, or just to look at your specific situation. So it's been awesome. Thanks for joining us, and I hope to talk to you soon.